wish I had learned this truth many years ago.
All right, welcome to episode 3 of Warrior vs. Zombie, and I'm here in the studio with one of my good friends and quite a warrior, I would say.
Well, thank you.
Shannon McGraw-Dietz. Shannon, I'm going to get into your background and stuff a little bit. Shannon is a survivor. She is somebody who has gotten through a lot of things in her life, now a life coach, transformational life coach, I think is the best way to characterize you. And again, an awesome resource, somebody that is really helping a lot of people. And through her Hopeful Hearts ministry, she's got about 10,000 followers there, people that she's serving in the community. And I always say it's serving, and it is a ministry, and that's everything I do in my networks is a ministry. So we're very much aligned there. So I wanted to start off, as we do all episodes, with kind of a check-in. And today is a day of challenge and change and transformation and overcoming. And we'll get into kind of some of your history and your story behind that, and also kind of where you are today. But before we do that, let's just kind of check in. So, hi Shannon, tell me a little bit about where your head's at today. Okay,
Absolutely. Well, first of all, let me say I'm glad to be here and not in my apartment right this second. But we are definitely keeping our social distance.
Yes, we are doing this.
The world right now is we're all in the same boat. And I think that's so important for all of us to know. And I know that's something that in a weird way brings me comfort, that not just those around me here in the Dallas County, or even in Texas in general, but all over the United States, all over the world. It is a hard time, but we're not alone. We're all going through the very same situation. So, and I think it's important that, like for instance, this podcast that you're doing, is important, for all of those that are at home and just needing some words of encouragement, just needing some examples, and to remind themselves that there's so many things that have gone on in the past, and not even just people's lives, but in history in general, and we've overcome. And we've come through that. And in the beginning, you called me a survivor. I do say I'm a survivor. I like to say I'm a thriver.
Thriver. Good.
Yeah. And, thriving through so many different things in my life. And is this time checking in right now? Is it, does it cause a sense of, what's going to happen? None of us know what's going to happen. How are the finances going to be? Where will, my job be, or, whatever it is that everybody's truly concerned about. I mean, I think the utmost concern are for those that have parents or, those that are more susceptible. And so there's a lot of worry. So right now, I think that you and I both have this intent and need and want to just not only encourage one another by being here and being a support, but encourage everybody else out there listening, and to know that you're okay. You're not alone. You're validated, but there's still hope.
Yeah, I think that from my perspective, well, I think you know me a little bit. I mean, I run a number of large networking groups, and I'm a full-on introvert or extrovert, and
Right.
Not an introvert.
I was going to say
that's a long way from me. But I'm full-on extrovert, and I really need the human interaction. But one of the things that's become very apparent to me, and really is an opportunity. I mean, if you approach the challenges, the disruptions, the things that you encounter, and I'm sure you've seen some of this in your own history, your story, with a sense of, okay, this isn't what I'm used to.
Right.
This isn't what I would have even maybe asked for or prayed for or anything else, but it is what it is.
Right.
And in this case, we're not alone, but we're never alone.
Right.
But sometimes when it's only affecting us, and I'm not going to get into your stories, but my experience was in 2008, and when the market crashed and I wasn't ready and it wasn't what I expected, and lost a few $1 million, and it changed my life. But
your trajectory changes of your mindset.
But we make it through and we're here. And I want to make sure, one of the things is that, we're in a place where only essential services are available. But guess what? Media is deemed an essential service.
Amen.
And this media, hopefully, will be essential to the people that find this podcast, that find us and get a chance to hear your message. So I'm excited about that. For those that are out there and they're in the shut-in, shut-down, it's a beautiful day here in Dallas. I don't know what it's like in every other part of the world, but one of the things for your health, this is a PSA, get outside, get some sunshine. Don't stay locked up in your apartment or watching Netflix. This is an opportunity. When I came in here, the sun was shining. That elevated my mood immensely, because this too will pass, and it's a beautiful day. Plus, not to mention the fact that we're going to get over 80 degrees today, and viruses don't do well when you get north of 80 degrees. So hopefully maybe that'll be a disinfectant that I'll experience in my transit from point A to point B. Well, anything else before we go? I'm going to go to a quick break, and then we're going to come back. And what I want to do, Shannon, is talk to you kind of at some parts of your journey, the thriving and the challenges that you've overcome. I call them zombies. Zombies are both internal and external, and we all are infected to a degree with kind of a habit, and the habits that don't always serve us and things like that, but we overcome. And those that are warriors are always looking for those zombies to get out of their way. So with that, I'm going to take us to break. I want you to listen to a little bit more of It's Not the Getting There, which is actually a song written by Ricky Jean Wright, who is a singer-songwriter, friend of ours, and he actually wrote it specifically inspired by the message that I continually delivered and to our networking group and so on at Richardson Plano Networkers, and I was honored to be able to now feature it as kind of the theme song for Warrior versus Zombie. So we're going to go a little bit. We'll take a cut of that. We won't hear the whole thing, but you'll hear it before it's done. So, and here we go.
I wish I had learned this truth many years ago. Be thankful for the days, good and bad, out on life's road. But the miles become the teacher, while the student learns real slow, traveling blind most of the time. Wherever you go, it's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's not a race to see how many people know your name. One day you realize.
All right, we're coming back here, and we're going to talk some more to Shannon. And Shannon, we've had the opportunity to sit down one-on-one, and I got to hear your story early on in our relationship and guesting sources. So tell me a little bit about your story. It's an amazing story of thriving in the face of adversity, and I want the audience to kind of go with you a little bit.
Absolutely. It's funny, I was just meeting the producer as well, and he was like, give me an elevator pitch. And, that I think that it is hard at times to give this kind of one sentence, like, what all have you been through? So as a quick rundown, and then we can maybe break it apart a little bit and go back and forth. But I am an incest survivor, and I'm a rape survivor in high school and in college. And I began a lot of what I'd done focused on just this need to serve those that have been through similar abuses. whether it be mental, physical, sexual, emotional abuse. And that's when I started Hopeful Hearts Ministry. In the past 5 years, after starting Hopeful Hearts Ministry, after overcoming and thriving through so much, I had also gone through a divorce, and I had gone through cancer. I had papillary thyroid cancer that metastasized in my lymph nodes. And after going through radiation from the cancer, we flooded, this is before I actually got divorced, flooded with Hurricane Harvey in Houston. So my nonprofit offices and my home both flooded, and I was rescued from my home by the Cajun Navy, who are awesome. Just want to put a shout out to them in Louisiana. But literally walked out with waist deep water, watched it come through my home and lost everything. 2 years, the year before I had cancer, 2 years before the flood, we also had a storage fire. So we fire, flood, famine. I mean, like, what else could I go through? But we lost, everything, like Christmas, all of that good stuff. And so in the flood, we lost everything else. So you quickly learn to not, you learn that the possessions that you have, physical possessions aren't that needful. I don't know what word I want to say.
Aren't as high a priority.
Not a priority. Thank you. That's the word I needed.
Yeah, that's okay.
Your family is what's important. Your friends are what's important. Your faith is what's important. Knowing that, and at that point, going through the hurricane, you have your community, and I believe that we have our communities now. The problem is we're just having to be separated from them. So family right now, I think, is so, so important, whether you're talking to them by FaceTime or Zoom or Skype or whatever, but just to keep that connection. But anyway, so I was going through cancer at the same time that we went through the hurricane, and loss of my father-in-law, and then, the illness of my own father, who then passed away, and then ultimately I went through the divorce. So just a lot had gone on. But with each, I'll never forget sitting in my mother-in-law's kitchen, sitting at the table after having been just rescued from my home, and literally not even have but the underwear that I was wearing. That's all I owned was the underwear I was wearing, the t-shirt and the shorts. I didn't have shoes on because we were going out into the water. So I don't know what I was thinking. My go bag was just all the paperwork that I had thought to put together years ago into another bag. And so I grabbed that, and that was literally it. I had nothing. And I remember sitting at the table, and I had this peace come over me because I thought about everything else that I had been through in my life. I had overcome having been raped. I'd overcome having the memories of what my grandfather had done. I had overcome losing a child. I had twins, and I lost one of the twins. I had overcome cancer. I had overcome, I was still dealing with cancer, but I was going through it. You know what I mean? And I just had this peace, and this thought went through my mind of, you will overcome too. I will bring a greater good. And that
Amen.
Is one thing. I'm a very faithful person, and God has always brought a greater good. Mm-hmm. Change has happened, and it's been hard, and the trajectory of my course has been completely thrown off. And that can send such anxiety and just worry. But I have come to a point now, I promise that every little thing that's happened, it's been so interesting, and I would never even go back and change the course of my life.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, and so I thought about it today. I was on another little one-on-one with somebody, and we were kind of doing our distance, but going for a walk. And the Arbors here in Plano, which is awesome. I'm just going to shout out for that. Y'all
Sure.
Not everybody should flock there because we don't want it too
want
crowded.
To get too crowded, but yeah.
Anyway, we were discussing this, and I said, I'm kind of excited. Am I just as worried as everybody else? Yes. I mean, I don't know where I'm going to be or what's going to happen. But we're, like I said in the beginning, we're all in this boat together. So we're kind of all on that same page, if you will. And so what it will look like for each of us might not be known, but there will be a greater good that comes from it. And I know that more than anything. I know that. And so it's kind of exciting in a weird way.
No, it's actually, it's very powerful. And so let me recap, because for those listening to the podcast, and this can, it was overwhelming for me just to hear what you just said. So
Right.
you've dealt with overcoming cancer, you've dealt with being flooded in a hurricane, you've dealt with losing loved ones, your father, people that are close to you, and all of those things. I can see it in your eyes and I can hear it in your voice are all actually now part of who you are.
Absolutely.
And make you who you are. And that's the word that comes out to me is resilience. And it's something that if you don't have an opportunity,
Right.
and opportunity is a weird word to use for this, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you're saying the same thing. But if you
Right.
don't have the opportunity to make it through to the other side of the kind of challenges, whether it's cancer, whether it's, whatever, then when they do hit, it really can knock you for a loop.
Right.
And so I think that's kind of, you, like most of us that are warriors along the road, have our own zombies that we've overcome, the things that have encountered, that whether they were thrust upon us or habits that we developed. And we basically have overcome those, and they become part of our story.
Right.
They become part of our recognition of our vision, our life purpose, our just cause, if you will, the things that we begin to embrace from that point forward to say, okay, I made it through this. And I love the warriors that look back and say, okay, there's other people behind me, and they're going to follow me, and I'm going to make it easier for them, or I'm going to try and help them get to the place that I'm at faster with less maybe damage or collateral damage or whatever, because it does bring damage and collateral damage. It doesn't come without pain.
Right.
It's outside of everything we were comfortable with before we come to those things. But God gives us the strength
That's right.
to make it through. And that's the thing I always say is I think about just your story and the things that you just said. And in my mind, I'm going, man, I don't know if I could really, I don't know how she made it through. I don't know if I could make it through. But I always say, basically God gives you the strength to get through the things that he puts in your way.
Right.
You just have to really dig down and grab those things. So that's an awesome thing.
Ultimately, I think in being able to get through situations, and let's just use the situation that we're all in right now, it's about knowing your worth regardless of whatever the situation is. It's saying I'm worthy enough to live through this and to overcome this, and to then believe in yourself and believe in the talents that you have and the gifts that you have, and know. And I think in all that I've been through, it's not been that I've gone in and, oh, this has just been exciting and I've been, peaches and unicorns and whatever the whole time. I mean, I had my moments of crying and devastation and sobbing and maybe it'd be better if I died. And I mean, I could go on with just the drama, right? But one thing I learned, many years ago, and I actually use this a lot when I work with my clients, is I don't allow myself. You do need to be able to give yourself the time to cry if you need to cry, or to be angry, or to be frustrated. Whatever the feelings are, you're validated in those feelings. Give yourself a time limit. I know that even just recently, after going through the divorce and finally getting my cancer-free diagnosis and just all of this stuff, and feeling as if I'm starting over. And it was overwhelming, and I lost my dad, and I really didn't get to grieve my dad. He died during Christmas, and so it was just this overwhelmingness, and I just began to sob. And I thought to myself, I'm giving myself an hour, and I am going to just bawl my eyes out. And I did. I mean, I'm talking just heart heavy, just screaming, sobbing, crying, just eyes puffy, horrible. God, mad at God, how could this be happening? Don't know what I'm going to do. All of those feelings. And then even within the hour, less than the hour, I thought, I don't want to be alone in this. I called a friend that I knew would understand, spoke to her about it. She just, it's not that she needed to say anything. I just needed to talk it out.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like, okay, I'm done. My hour's done. And tomorrow is a new day. And I'm going to be fine. And I was. And I am. And you will be too.
Wow. That's very, what you've shared there is very therapeutic and even for me and even for those at this point in time. So we're gonna take another quick little break.
Absolutely.
And then we're gonna come back and I want to talk kind of your reason. I mean, your reason is helping people.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned something about the refractory period.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that we shorten that period of getting over it, and you just gave a miraculous example of how it was an hour.
Right.
I mean, that's somebody that's made it through stuff.
Right.
Because you don't shorten. I mean, I have kids, and I've grown up, and I've dwelled on things that I didn't really like for way too long.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, but I want to talk to you a little bit about, kind of where you are, where you're going, what unique value you see that you provide to your clients and your community.
Absolutely.
And then, kind of if anything were possible, kind of where would you be? And then we'll kind of land the plane there and
okay.
Give people an opportunity to understand where they can and how they can connect with you going forward. Is that good?
Absolutely.
All
Thank
right.
you.
So let's go back to here, and hopefully I can get this going again. There we go.
Time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there. When you get there, you'll know. Funny how wisdom and youth are always two different games. The years flew by so fast, is the common human complaint. The memories in our minds turn to diamonds in our soul, and by the grace of God, on down the road we go. It's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's not a race to see how many people know your name. One day you realize time was worth.
All right, we're back with Shannon McGraw, and I am just loving this this interview and this talk. And for those, if you joined us on the podcast, hopefully you made it to this point. We had a little glitch on my side. I'm all about being transparent, and one of the things in the description of this podcast, it's raw, unedited. It will be edited, actually, because the producer will come back and put in that segment of audio. Good news is we have 2 audio streams going here, so we'll fix it for those that maybe get the first version. But you can see it all on Facebook Live, even my admission of guilt and failure. But that's also part of it, right?
That's right.
I mean,
Growth.
when
It's not failure, it's growth.
that's one of the things that that I wanted to ask you about just real quickly, and it may not be one, but when you went through these things, did you beat yourself up at all for not being prepared for the things? Because I know that was the one that that really took me a while to overcome. As even though this COVID-19 or the flood in Houston or the cancer diagnosis or all these things we could mention in our lives right now. Or in our past. One of the things we do is we don't give ourselves the grace to realize that you're not always prepared for everything that comes, and spending time thinking about what if I could, what I could, all these things. That was a hard thing for me to get through. So what do you in your journey?
I think that term that you just said, giving yourself the grace, for me, probably the hardest out of all of those was the divorce. I was married for 22 years, and I really won't go into great detail about that. I have a second book on my marriage, Redeemed, and I'll go over my books in a minute. But it was something that needed to be done. I believe, in my opinion, for both parts. And, but that was probably one of the most devastating things amongst all, that I had to really look at myself and the failure, if you want to use that word, the failures, and where I went wrong, and could I, should I, would I, what if I'd done this, all of those things, and in all aspects. I mean, the cancer, that to me, even something like this, a virus that's knocking everybody out. I mean, I don't know if you can be prepared. When you hear the C word, that's so difficult and it's hard. And I remember thinking, with all that I had been through in my life, at 8 years old, I was nearly abducted to be a cult sacrifice, and that's probably a whole other story. Oh, wow. But that's how my story begins. But, and all the things that could have taken my life, even, the times I probably would have almost been at a place of wanting to end my life. The divorce was probably the one that was the most difficult, because the others, you can try to fight as much as you can, but you kind of don't have you don't have the power over it. You have to start believing in God's plan. With the Hopeful Hearts Ministry, we're faith-based, Christian-based, but yet I work with anybody, everybody. Sure. And of all different types of faiths and religions and denominations and whatever. Right. And I think that the common denominator that most of us have, no matter who we are or what we believe in, is that kind of belief in a higher power, or in something to give us that hope. And when we start going into what ifs, could have, should haves, and we should have all over ourselves.
Should have all over ourselves, yeah.
It paralyzes us, and it keeps us, in that devastating place in that moment. And that's not what we're meant to be. That's not who we're meant to be. And so I love, again, that term you said, giving ourselves grace. Be kind to yourself. Self-care in this time, be able to recognize that, like I said in the beginning, you're not alone. And I keep saying that because I think often when we do the could've, should've, would've, what if, we feel very lonely in that aspect. And even if people are surrounding you, you can feel lonely in your own devastation or desperation. And so I just want to keep encouraging you in this regard to give yourself that grace to come out of this and say, you know what, I'm not going to let this get me down. I'm not going to, fight. Again, know your worth. You are worthy. Know that you are not meant to be somebody that holes up in a corner and watches Netflix all day. And, there's something that you could do. You could do for your family, that you could do for those around you, that you could write letters, you could get on the phone. There's so much that we could do to help one another. And so not just to give yourself grace, but to give everybody else the grace that they need to survive.
Yeah, and it really is. It's actually one of the things I read about this viral thing going on is, I think, especially the younger generation, but people are able to accept that there's this virus that they can't deal with. Those, as you get older, that maybe the stock market dropped, and all of a sudden you think, maybe I should have seen this coming. Maybe I should have changed my portfolio. And there's plenty of people out there to tell you, you met. I think that's one of the things. So it makes total sense to me that the divorce kind of on this, even though for me, looking at your overall package of things that you've overcome and you're thriving through, it seems like, that wouldn't necessarily make the top of the list, but I understand it. I really do, because through this challenge of, you may have weathered and not gotten the virus or not lost anybody. It doesn't seem like there's a high fatality rate really for it. So on a scale of things, but that being said, the byproducts, the things. How do I deal with my family when I'm at home, and how do I, and do I be proactive, and as opposed to sit here and look at this closed door and think, why did that door close? What are the doors that are open? So that's great advice. Just to give yourself grace, look forward, and find the opportunities. So, what would you tell our audience is, and from your perspective anyway, one of the, if not the most important thing that they can have in their toolkit at this point to go through what we're going through, or and other things? I mean, they may be here. Somebody might be listening to the podcast and dealing with cancer, or dealing with a divorce, or it's not all COVID-19.
Right.
In fact, that's just kind of a
COVID-19 is adding to
right
whatever. A lot of people. I mean, there's so many people right now going through, divorce and various types of situations in that regard, or they're going through cancer and literally fighting for their lives. And, I know that there are people even before COVID-19 hit that were possibly going through, losing their job, or, trying to figure out where they're going in life, or whatever. And so I guess one thing that I feel that is so important, that I know that most of us are struggling through, I know that I struggle with this, is you're feeling that loss of control. And, like I said, when we all feel like we have some sense of trajectory, that we have here's my path, and this is where I'm going, and these are my next steps. For those of you that are already struggling through something else besides now having to be stuck at home, you were already beginning to feel that. You were already beginning to feel this sense of, everything's been pulled under my feet, and I've fallen, and now I don't know how to get up, and I don't know what to do. Everybody else who might have had this great plan going, and everything was hunky-dory and fine, and they were great, and then now they're stuck at home, and it could be now that they're facing the loss of work or income, or, who knows what you could possibly be going through. So we're all losing that sense of control. To me, these are a few steps that I feel are very important to be able to get a sense of that back. First and foremost, if you have any type of faith, definitely prayer is important. I know for me, keeping that prayer schedule, beginning the day with prayer and gratitude, and truly making a list at least of 10 different things that you're grateful for. It could be, your children, your family, but I even put down, I'm grateful for this apartment that I live in. I'm grateful for the sun that came out today. I'm grateful for, whatever.
Sure.
Find 10 things that you're grateful for and begin the day in prayer. The other thing is set a schedule for yourself, Monday through Friday. Let yourself have the weekends off. But now this is your job, being at home. And whether you're working from home, or, whatever the situation is, and you've got kids at home and now you're homeschooling, or whatever, it's chaos for you right now.
Sure.
Take a moment, take a day if you need the whole day, to sit down and go, okay, it's going to be different for everybody. There's people that are staying by themselves. You're going to come up with your own type of schedule. The people that have small kids at home, you're going to have your own, whatever. But there's hours to get up, hours to have lunch, dinner, create your homeschool schedule. How long are you going to work? If you don't have a job that you're working from home and you don't know what you're doing, start writing the book you always wanted to write.
Sure.
Start, like I said, writing letters. Maybe start writing letters to, people elderly that are stuck in nursing homes. You don't even have to know their names. Come up with something. I promise you, I want you to really take a moment after you hear this podcast or watch this Facebook Live. Take a moment, and I want you to start thinking about what excites you, what really brings you joy and happiness. I want you to start writing it all down. Even if it sounds stupid, doesn't make sense, I want you to write it all down. I promise you, there's something that you're going to be led to, that you can use those gifts, or use the sense of that, what brings you joy and happiness, to bring joy and happiness to other people. And then the final thing I want to offer is, when you find yourself getting anxious, overwhelmed, sad, all of those things, Maybe it's not just an hour that you need. Maybe it is the day that you need. Give yourself a time limit, but also breathe. And when we focus on our breath, I think that is so important. You count, and this is what I do. This is literally what I do. I count in 5 count breath. You hold it for 2, and then you let it out counting 7. So your letting exhale is going to be longer than your inhale. But the more that if you can do that at least 5 times, but counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, hold for 2, let it out for 7, it calms you down.
Lowers your blood pressure. Everything.
It calms the crazy mind, the chaotic mind, and it can get you reset and then say, okay, because right now you are your biggest advocate. You are your number one warrior for yourself.
Absolutely.
And so take care of yourself first. If you have other ones around you, take care of yourself first. Like you put the oxygen mask on first, right? And then work with everybody else.
Well, and that's one of the interesting, where I was going to go, one of the things is, and I can see the strength, by the way, in where you're at. And one of the things, as I say, and actually one of my mentors says is, the key to joy and fulfillment and happiness that we all seek are 3 things: giving, growing, and gratitude. Not necessarily in those orders, but you said gratitude, and early on in our conversation, you're giving to the community. And this is an opportunity to be fulfilled and joyful in the moment by growing, whether it's, like you say, writing a book, doing something. I was going to get to that, but I didn't have the time. Well, now you got the time.
Exactly.
Now there's some time. God has made some time, or whoever's made some time for you to do some things. Doing a podcast, which is something I'm learning and going through and trying to pay it forward and give some stuff and share with people in my network that have a message to say. So let's take one more quick break. Okay. And then I want to come back and I want to talk about how do we get in touch with you, what kind of resources, how you might. I know you're here, you're a warrior, you want to pay it forward, you want to do what you can, and you're like me in respect that you have to sustain your life, but also it's not all about money. And you've already made investments in making people's lives better, I can tell. And this is hopefully this is an investment as well. So let's take another quick break, hear a little more Ricky Jean Wright, and then we'll be right back.
It's not the getting there. When you get there, you'll know. It's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's not a race to see how many people know your name. One day
All right. It's not the getting there, it's the journey. And we're coming to the end of the journey, or what I say, an opportunity to land the plane. Right. But before you get away, I really, there's so much. I mean, you have so much to offer. I'm just so impressed.
Thanks.
And a lot of it's come from your journey. A lot of it's come from what you've overcome. And I know you're a resource. Part of the strength that I see in overcoming is the fact that one of the things I tell people a lot when they've lost a job, or my clients and stuff, and I say, find some, in the interim, do what you can, get your resume going, get, your business back on track, whatever you got to do, but take a minute to look around and find somebody else that you can help. Maybe not even going through what you're going through, but find somebody, go volunteer, go to the school. My brother-in-law just went down and helped him load vegetables at a place and took them to a food pantry and did some stuff, right? So anyway, but tell me a little bit about how we tell our audience. You can tell me and our audience at the same time. How can we benefit from your investments that you've already made, and how can you?
Okay.
What kind of? I want you to talk about your books.
Right. Well, if you're sitting at home and you have nothing else to do and you like to read, I do have 2 books out. I'm showing them for the Facebook.
For Facebook Live, yeah.
The first one is Exposed, and it was published almost 12 years ago, but it is still selling. And the second one is Redeemed. It's the one that I said I had written about my marriage, and it goes through the miscarriage and then dealing with just children and gosh, everything else. I had an emergency hysterectomy when I was 30, and just a lot of other different things to overcome. And so, again, those are available on Amazon. They're under Shannon M. Dietz, D-E-I-T-Z. I have just finished a 3rd book. It's a self-help book called Awake My Soul, and it's how to let go and let God. And I literally just finished it, just had somebody edit it, and so I'll be going through the changes, and I'm going to try to bust that out as fast as I can so that it can be at least online.
During this time, right?
During this time, so that it can be online, because I think it's actually quite pertinent for what everybody's going through right now. So hopefully you'll find that online within the next month or 2. I have on Hopeful Hearts Ministry Facebook, Hopeful Hearts Ministry. I do Facebook Lives, and I'll do that like once a week. I do them different times just because of what's going on, and I'll have different discussions. Just in regards to different types of abuse. If you've gone through emotional abuse, dealing with narcissists in your life, physical abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, just different aspects of how to heal, how to overcome. And, but what I like to do and what I love to do, I'm a mental health peer support specialist. I am here as a transformational coach. I'm here to help you. I'm here to help you walk through a transition, to get through those transitions, or to figure out, where you might be transitioning to, or just how to truly have somebody with you holding your hand, getting through these hard times. And so if you're interested, I'm happy to speak with you for free at first, just to see where we're going. But I'm available, ShannonMcGraw.com, HopefulHeartsMinistry.org. I would just love to hear from you. I'm here to help you in any way I can.
That's awesome, Shannon. And I really appreciate you venturing out in these troubled times for that we could have this broadcast that will hopefully serve some people on Facebook. If you enjoyed this broadcast, Warrior versus Zombie, and episode 3. So I would encourage you to share on Facebook Live. If you can find us on your varying podcasting sites, sign up for it. And also, if you want to reach out to Shannon, go to her Hopeful Hearts Ministry
.org or Shannon and McGraw,
and follow her. And share this message of hope and thriving with your audience. So going to appreciate you again. I just really thank you for coming. Travel safely.
Thank you.
As you go on. And for those in the audience, hopefully this has been helpful to you. That's our goal. That's our objective here at Warrior versus Zombie. And if you have anything that you need, reach out to me, and we'll be streaming this. And so anyway, I think we're going to land the plane. Again, I'm Dave Roberts here with my special guest, Shannon McGraw, and we're going to sign out with the final part of the song from Ricky Jean Wright, It's Not the Getting There, which you can find, by the way, on iTunes and any other streaming source. And he has albums and stuff. It's singer-songwriter, Americana singer. Oh, well, thank you for coming. It's been a true blessing. So let's get back into It's Not the Getting There.
And the gold, it's not the getting there. When you get there, you'll know. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there. When you get there, you'll know.